Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Ducksy Gaming, and a quick video going over the changes in the Balance Manifesto that are going to affect the Vile Lightning Strike build. So overall, I think Raider got off quite lightly in some aspects, because it's now easy to get spell suppression on the tree, which means when you get to maps, you can get ailment immune and spell suppression pretty much straight away, which is really, really nice defensively. But there are things that have hit the build, meaning at endgame it's a bit more difficult to fit in all the auras, and there's a few tweaks that are needed to be made to tree and gear to make sure that the build just functions as it did before. But damage-wise, nothing has changed, which is really good news. There's only two major things really that affect the build, and that is the Defiance Banner nerf, which we'll go through in a moment. And then the main hit, which is going to be for probably every single build in the game, is the removal of 15% mana reservation mastery. So let's start with the Defiance Banner nerf. It is a massive one, but I think it is 100% warranted. As for a 10% aura, it was way too good. So we'll load up Defiance Banner here, and we'll have a look at the changes. They basically said the problem is that it provides a substantial increase to armor and evasion, and it does. We knew it was going to get nerfed. It's pretty broken. So Defiance Banner before gave you 49% increased evasion and armor rating at gem level 20, which is pretty insane considering nodes on the tree only have like 25 for like the notables. So I've now basically said it's going to be 15 to 24. So a level 1 gem before was 30, a level 20 gem is now 24. It's still an increase, and it's probably more in line with what you'd expect for a 10% aura. The crit has changed slightly, but it doesn't matter too much. So basically before, enemies had up to 29% reduced crit. They've now got up to 40%. So it's obviously a safety aspect added to it. Anomalous Defiance Banner doesn't really matter. The one thing I wanted to cover is people don't really place Defiance Banner. They just use it to get the increased armor and evasion. But placing it is a massive buff. It gives you increased aura effect, and it gives 15% less damage dealt by enemies. So it's something you should definitely start learning to place at bosses at least, because it's a good boost to survivability. You don't need to place it really at any other time in the game other than when you get to the boss. I'm not saying you have to do it, but if you're on a build maybe where you're trying to push content and bosses are a little bit dangerous, then placing your Defiance Banner can massively help. Let's say that's definitely going to affect the build, because it means you just need to spec a bit more into pushing your armor and evasion up to decent levels. So I mentioned there's two changes. There's actually three. So the next one we'll come on to is this Gravicious Vowed modifier on body armor, which is a massive hit. So you could get a massive chunk of survivability in the build by running this mod on a body armor, and you basically get like 500 energy shield for free. You then take Ghost Dance on the tree, which basically regens your energy shield based on your evasion. So it's another layer of defense. Essentially, you add an extra 600 life. That's now been removed. The only place I think you're going to get it is a temple mod, but then without recombinators, you're probably going to have to drop like the perfect chest, then 6 socket it and 6 link it just to that mod. It's probably not worth it. There might be ways around it. You can maybe run a chest with some energy shield on it, but the energy shield hybrid chests are pretty bad in terms of the stats that you get. But it could be an option. You could run that, and then you can still run Ghost Dance for maybe an extra 300, 400 effective life, but I'm not sure it's going to be worth it. It's something we need to look into, but that is a big hit. Not for just this build. Nearly any build that was able to get Ghost Dance would take this mod, because it is just a massive percentage to your effective health pool. And then last thing we're going to go on to are the changes to the mana reservation, which is really the biggest change I would think that's going to affect the build and pretty much every build in the game. So if we go up here and have a look. Yeah, so we've got here, the introduction of reservation efficiency encouraged a larger range of builds to invest in skills, which is what they wanted to do. They're basically essentially saying that 15% for 1 point is too much. And it probably is. I just don't agree with them removing it outright, because it does mean a lot of builds that maybe relied on this to get auras in to make their build viable or feel nice is no longer possible early on, and you have to maybe get mana reservation on gear, or you have to use that as an enchant, which lowers the power of the build. So there was a 15% increased mana reservation efficiency mastery that I would think every single build in the game took, and that's gone. So it doesn't exist anymore. They've also nerfed the aura effect one, but I never took that on the build anyway, because we weren't as a range of really aura stacking, so it probably wasn't worth the point. And we only take one reservation wheel, and the mastery for 15% would obviously be the one that you took. It is an option now at 10% to take it, but again, I'm not 100% sure it's worth it. It's something that we need to look at. They're really the only changes that are going to affect the build. There's nothing in the Balance Manifesto in regards to skills or gems that get used in the build. So essentially, once you get over the mana reservation issue, and which we'll come on to in a minute, the build should function as it did before. So if you enjoyed it in 3.18, you're going to enjoy it in 3.19. I'm probably going to try a different build just because this would be the 5th league that I league start Lightning Strike with. And I just want to do something different, but it's not because the build's not going to function. It's going to work pretty much exactly the same. It's just because I can only play the same build so many times. So we'll go and have a look. This is a potential starter tree that I've come up with based on the changes. So one thing I'm going to now do is go Determination over Grace. I never used to do it before because I always felt Grace with something like Immortal Call, Elusive and stuff like that was enough for early maps. But with the introduction of Arch Nemesis mobs, you can get one shot really, really easy without a lot of armor. So I think it's really mandatory to go Determination and just get your evasion from your gear and any passives that might have evasion on it. So this is essentially a level 73 tree with basically armor and evasion gear. None of it's particularly good. I've just put gear that you would have. If you rush through the campaign to do it in like 4 hours, you're not going to have this gear. But if you spent maybe 6 hours to go through the campaign, did a tiny bit of heist and maybe some betrayal in foothills, you'd easily have gear that was equal to this. All you need to make sure is that your bases where you can are armor and evasion, because then that spreads out evasion and armor. With Determination we get a boost to armor, and just with stuff from tree we get percentage evasion anyway. So this is a nice figure to be going into maps with. There's a few caveats. Firstly, rolling flask is going to be more important than ever. So on your granite flask, get increased armor. On your jade flask, get increased evasion. That just increases your defensive massive. Like if we turn these flasks off, you've got 5,800 evasion and 9,200 armor. You put them on and it goes to 12.5 and 17.3. So it's pretty massive. So I've only set the gems at like level 17 or 16 to really represent kind of very early mapping. So I'll go through the changes. Previously, I've kind of gone up here and just stuck in this ranger area. Taken obviously this here. We'd take this with the Grace Reservation. You'd take this here. You'd maybe go up and get these Clornos here. You'd go up here. I just think survivability is probably more important if people are trying to build for the first time, for example. They might get turned off if they maybe haven't built the character quite right and they're just getting one shot on every single map. Determination gives you a bit of leeway. Also means you can run a cast on damage taken Molten Shell just to mitigate stuff. So if we were to remove Molten Shell, with our flask up, we've still got really good fizz max hit, considering this is going to be in like white maps. You got 11k fizz hit. 12k Ellie, that's really, really good. You're not going to get one shot, which means when you do need the defenses, your Molten Shell kicks in, and you basically, other than chaos damage and damage over time, you're going to be pretty immortal in early mapping, even with only like 3k life. It is going to be super important to go into maps with some sort of half decent gear, so at least have life on your gear, have some armor and evasion. You're also going to need accuracy because of some changes I'm going to go through now. Don't go, I mean, you can, like, don't get me wrong, if you don't mind dying in maps, you can go straight into maps and it can still work absolutely fine. But I prefer to have a more enjoyable playing experience, so I would rather maybe spend an hour in the campaign farming, you know, the lead mechanic if it's good, heist, blood aqueducts, whatever, just to get gear going so that I'm capped when I kill Kitava, and I've got plenty of armor and evasion to make me really, really comfortable when I'm mapping. So obviously the differences in trees, we're taking the Determination Reservation Mastery because we're going to need to. This part here is something I'm thinking about putting in, just literally going to have it for early maps because you don't get 30% ailment avoidance shields until like level 73, 74 item level. So just taking this, the DPS is really good for these nodes anyway, like it's 4% per point. It's basically attack damage when you've got a shield. And then there's a mastery that gives you elemental ailment avoidance. So this takes us, along with this wheel and our ascendancy, to 90. So you just need to find 10 on shield, which is super easy. What this tree means, with the changes to spell suppression passives being increased, this tree here gives you 100% spell suppression without anything on gear. And it gives you 100% ailment avoidance just by finding 10% on an item of gear. It's going to make mapping early on feel really, really comfortable. And then from here, we've picked up most of the life that we need on the tree. It's basically going to be damage from here on out, which again is really, really nice progression for when you're hitting maps. The main change is this precision part here, because we can't fit in the auras that we fit in before. So what we have to do now is run a lower level precision. And instead of taking Reservation Mastery, you take Dex Accuracy bonus gives +3 to accuracy, because without it, if we take that off, and I have got accuracy on my gear as well, the hit chance is 95%. If we were to take these two rings off, which have accuracy on them, it's 87%, and that is way too low. So you are going to need, not a lot, you're probably going to need 400 accuracy spread across all of the gear. You take this Reservation Mastery here just to top it up a little bit, and now we're at 99%. So with I would think, how much accuracy have I got on my rings here? So 202 on each. So yeah, 400 accuracy, you're going to be about capped. You'll have 103 mana. So early on, you could probably realistically, because Molten Shell doesn't use a lot of mana, you could actually push the precision up a little bit past 5, because I think going to something like 90 mana would be fine. And then that gets 100% chance to hit. And that's kind of it. This is obviously the Spectral Helix leveling build, just on a 5-link, which I would always recommend you buy a 5-link before you start mapping. And then from here, it means you can start speccing out your Lightning Strike tree. So you can go to Pierce if you want to, but I'd recommend just trying to pick up a cheap +2 helmet. And then I will quickly load up an end game tree just to show you what it's probably going to look like. And this is with sort of a few X worth of gear. So if we go to the tree, so this would be a level 93 tree. So all we do, we pick up some more crit. We go up here, get our chaos resistance, and then we take point blank for our projectiles, and then we take coal here. There's different ways you can build it. This is just the way I would do it. And then we start taking the dual sockets, getting a lethal pride, and that's kind of it. This would be my kind of recommendation as a final tree. And then we drop these nodes here because we won't need the almond stuff anymore. And then we go and take all the juicy frenzy charge stuff here. So it gives us really good movement speed. DPS on, like, I'd say gear that you should be able to comfortably get in the first few days of the league. This isn't kind of end game stuff. This is just stuff I would say you would want when you hit like later red maps, and you should be able to afford it, maybe minus a lethal pride, because they can be a bit pricey early on. But other than that, it's all achievable. 100% spell suppress capped, 100% ailment immune, fairly decent armor and evasion on not amazing gear, and then from here you just scale it up from there. So that's it for this video. It's really just a quick overview of what I was thinking for 3.19. If anyone's got any ideas, let me know. But yeah, overall, not really much has changed. We just need to do a bit of tweak on mana reservation. So I think this build here is still looking at like a fairly low level precision. The reason I've set Defiance Banner at 1 is just to try and represent the new Defiance Banner as best as I can. But you can get reservation on lots of items. You could give up your Amulet Anoint, and you can anoint Sovereignty over here for 3 silver oils. That's going to give you 12%, so basically that's almost the same. You can get it on Shaper Shields, you can get it on Redeemer Helm enchants, you can get amulets that have reservation for specific skills. There's loads of ways you can get that extra little bit of mana reservation. You can get Eldritch Implicits on helmet. There are essences that roll 10% mana reservation on gear. There's loads of ways you can get that back once you're kind of into yellow early tier red maps and you want to start pushing your precision up to get the crit chance up a bit more. There's lots of ways to do it. But that's it for this video. It's really all I wanted to go through. What I'm going to do is have a practice league start run based on this tree with the skills, and I probably just won't run Defiance Banner to make up for the fact that you can't really replicate it because a level 1 is better than a new level 20. And we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping it's nice and comfortable. Once patch notes are out and it's confirmed that the build's still going to work and there's no nasty surprises in a patch notes, then a full guide will come out and I'll update the forum guide to make sure it represents the best way to play it in 3.19. As always, thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.